A very good afternoon to our distinguished speaker, respected colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, the ASEAN University Network for Agriculture and Food Security, AUN-AFS, the ASEAN University Network, AUN, and University of Putra Malaysia, UPM. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's session of the FAO Technical Lecture Series 2026. We are honored to welcome all the participants from universities, research institutions, government agencies, industry, and international organizations across ASEAN and beyond. We sincerely thank you for taking the time to be with us today and look forward to a productive and engaging program. Before we begin, I would like to share a few housekeeping announcements that this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available after the session, and the access link also will be shared in the Zoom chat box. And we encourage you to save the link for future reference. And also throughout the lecture, kindly keep your microphone muted to ensure the best audio quality for everyone. And we encourage everyone to participate by submitting your questions through the Zoom chat box. And at the end of the presentation, I will facilitate the question and answer session. Should you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, so please contact the organizing committee via the Zoom chat. All right, without further ado, let us begin today with a lecture on the integrated aquaculture systems and governance mechanism for sustainable aquaculture development. As for introduction, aquaculture continues to be one of the fastest growing food production sectors globally. And as demand for aquatic food increases, there is an urgent need to ensure that aquaculture development remains sustainable, environmentally responsible, and also economically viable. Integrated aquaculture system offer innovative approaches that improve the resources efficiency while strengthening the food security and also rural livelihoods. Today lecture will bring the FAO expert on who will share experience in aquaculture governance, fisheries management, and also integrated production system. All right. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker. Unfortunately, that two of them are not available with us today, but we have Mr. Oluwafemi Ajayi. He is an aquaculture and integrated agriculture-aquaculture specialist with the Fisheries and Aquaculture Division of FAO. He supports the management of global aquaculture initiatives, including the promotion of the FAO guidelines for sustainable aquaculture GSA. And he has coordinated projects and contributed to programs across Asia and Africa, promoting the development of integrated aquaculture, also investigating the feasibility of black soldier fly larvae as alternative fish feed ingredient, and providing technical support for aquaculture enterprise development. I think he's been doing a lot of tasks here. Okay, so his work promotes technical support for aquaculture roles in higher diets and also agri-food system transformation and resilience. So, ladies and gentlemen, I now invite our discussion speaker, Mr. Femi, to commence the presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I will quickly share my screen. Please just a moment. I hope you can see my screen. Oh, great. So, everyone, lecture series, and I'm very pleased to join you today, and I warmly welcome all the students participating in this lecture series governance. I would like to first situate this discussion within FAO's broader work. FAO's Fisheries and Aquaculture Division supports countries to make aquatic food systems more productive, sustainable, inclusive, and resilient. This connects directly to FAO's strategic framework and the four betters: the better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. Blue transformation sits under better production and guides FAO's work on fisheries, aquaculture, and aquatic value chains. This slide explains why blue transformation matters. The message is simple. Aquatic foods are no longer a side issue in food systems. They are central to nutrition, livelihoods, trade, environment, and environmental management. It has three main pillars. The first is the sustainable aquaculture, intensification, and expansion, so that we can produce more aquatic foods without damaging the ecosystems. This is followed by the fisheries management, so fish stocks remain healthy and livelihoods are protected. And the third is the upgraded value chains, so that aquatic foods are safe, affordable, traceable, and able to reach consumers with less food loss and waste. Um, in this slide helps us to think about the destination itself. So blue transformation is not only about producing more fish. It is about making aquatic foods available, accessible, safe, and nutritious for all. It is about supplying enough food for a growing population, strengthening food systems, and improving rights and incomes for people who depend on fisheries and aquaculture. So, when we talk about transformation, we mean practical change, better policies, better institutions, better investments, better data collection, and better data analysis, and better outcomes for people and the environment. Aquatic foods have grown significantly over time, as properly introduced by our moderator. And of course, aquaculture has become one of the fastest growing food production sectors. But the growth story also comes with responsibility. I hope everybody will agree with me on this, because the more we grow, we need to also look at sustainability. And of course, as aquaculture expands, country needs to ask important questions. Where should production continue to happen? And who benefits? What environmental safeguards are needed? And how do we ensure that expansion continue to contribute to food security and livelihoods? And this is especially where governance becomes very important. And governance is what helps turns this sector growth into sustainable development. So, I haven't introduced us to the broad program priority area of fisheries and of the fisheries and aquaculture division. I also want to now go in depth into our lecture series for today. Our lecture series is divided into two parts: the governance mechanism for sustainable aquaculture development and the integrated agriculture system. So, I will first go for the first part of the lecture. Unfortunately, my colleague, Mr. Pierre Mrekezi, is currently unable to join us today to give us this lecture on aquaculture governance. So I'm stepping in for him to deliver this part of the lecture. So before I delve into this, I just want to quickly talk about governance itself. When we talk about governance, sometimes it could sound quite abstract in nature. But in reality, it is about everyday decisions. What rules apply, how investments are approved, how farmers are supported, how risks are managed, and how results are reviewed. And I expect that by the end of this lecture, I hope you see governance not as just the paperwork, but as a system that makes sustainable agriculture possible. Please kindly follow me through this lecture on aquaculture governance. And then by the end of this, I expect that four things you should understand from this lecture as students. You'll be able to explain aquaculture governance in simple and practical terms, and also be able to identify some of the main FAO instruments and tools that support sustainable aquaculture, be able to distinguish between what policy, strategy, plans, laws, and institutional roles mean within the governance mechanism, and of course, understand why aquaculture governance must always be adapted to country contexts. So, aquaculture governance matters because the sector is growing rapidly. Not just growing, but growing in scale, in value, and importance. Because it contributes a lot to food production, it contributes to employment, it contributes to different development objectives of any country. In 2024, farmed aquatic animal production surpassed 100 million tons for the first time. And currently, aquaculture provides more than half of aquatic animal production. I mean, between capture fisheries and aquaculture. And even, of course, larger share of aquatic animal food outputs for human consumption. This growth creates opportunities, but also pressure. Without governance, growth can become fragmented, it could become poorly regulated, and could also become environmentally risky. So with governance, growth can be properly planned, could be properly financed, could be monitored and made beneficial for people, economies, and also to ensure environmental sustainability. So when we talk about aquaculture governance, it's also about how decisions are made and how actors are held accountable for these decisions. With this, we can ask 5 basic questions. Who decides? And that is about mandates and coordination. Who decides the mandate and who coordinates aquaculture governance? What is allowed? That is about rules, licensing, safeguards, environmental safeguards, and what have you. And of course, we can also ask the question, where and how should aquaculture develop? To what scale? And then this is about spatial planning. It could also be about production systems. There are different types of aquaculture production systems. Which one and which area should this be situated, and which area should this be fully promoted? And then there's a question about who benefits, and in terms of food, in terms of jobs, in terms of markets, in terms of livelihoods, in terms of other development objectives that the country may have. And of course, how can the performance be reviewed and be updated or be revised to make it more beneficial for the people? And then we talk about the indicators of progress, the reporting, and how to have course correction to ensure that the sector grows sustainably. So, having said this, governance is not only just about the government involved in this alone, it also involves public authority, it involves producers, it involves investors, communities, researchers, development partners, and even it involves virtually everybody through the participatory approach system. So, this particular slide breaks governance down into some main domains. We need to start with looking at the policy direction, which gives the sector a vision. Laws and regulations provide the rules. Institutions clarify who does what. Evidence helps countries make informed decisions. In investment turns priorities into bankable opportunities and investment opportunities, including public-private partnerships. And partnerships, as I mentioned, brings producers, communities, scientists, researchers, students, of course, even that are more involved in research, even and also private sectors into the process in a participatory approach systems. And accountability is quite important to ensure that results are tracked and course correction are applied where applicable. I'll close this part by saying that a weak governance system usually fails because one of these dimensions is missing. So a strong system needs to connect all these different dimensions to ensure that the process is well coordinated and the expected outputs are achieved. So I want to dwell a little bit on this slide, and I also want us to look at it properly. So within the FAO approach, it connects different global guidance with country level actions. At the global level, FAO supports principles, standards, and intergovernmental dialogue. And in fact, I would here I want to introduce the recently released FAO Guidelines for Sustainable Aquaculture, which translates sustainable aquaculture principles into clear guidance for policies, institutions, innovations, investments, and implementation at country level. At the end of this lecture, I will give us a barcode so that we can look properly into the guidelines for sustainable aquaculture document itself. So, having said this, at the global level, yes, FAO supports principles, standards, and intergovernmental dialogue. And at the technical level, FAO develops guidance and tools to help countries apply these principles. And at the country level, support must be adapted to national priorities. This is quite important. And the final step is to review and learn. This is not, governance is not just a one-time document. It is a cycle of planning, implementation, monitoring, adjustment, and of course, also improving the whole system itself. So the global guidance itself, they sets the common principles and standards. I've mentioned earlier where we have the CCRF Article 9, which is what the Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries, Article 9, which focuses on aquaculture components. It provides the core FAO reference for responsible aquaculture development itself. And I've mentioned the blue transformation in my introduction, and the COFI subcommittee on aquaculture. These are the intergovernmental mandates that help to shape aquaculture development. So I will speak more about the country implementation plan in subsequent slides. So a national governance system actually needs three connected levels: the policy, the strategy, and a plan. So policy defines the vision and guiding principles, while strategy explains the roadmap, which includes the targets, the sequencing, the responsibilities, and the financing approach. So this plans turns the strategy into activities, into budgets where necessary to implement the activities. Of course, the timelines for implementing these activities, who is responsible, and the monitoring arrangements. So the key message is this: a policy without a plan is actually often difficult to implement. So a plan, and of course, this links to that, a plan without policy direction is also often very difficult to justify. So these three components are quite important to ensure that sustainable culture governance is developed. So the key message is this: that a policy, a plan, that good governance actually requires all these three to work together. This slide, I just want to use this slide to reinforce the previous slide, that governance is a system and not just a single document, that even if a country have a good policy, but if institutions are weak, implementation may actually suffer. And of course, a country may have good laws, but if procedures are unclear, investors and farmers may actually struggle. And then a country may have strong production targets, but without evidence and monitoring systems, it may not know whether this growth is sustainable. So when we assess governance, we look at the full system: the policy, the law, institutions, the data, investments, participation, and accountability. So when looking at building the national governance systems, this is quite important to map the national issues and opportunities that will come with aquaculture development. And then following, of course, looking at other country examples through maybe South-South and triangular exchange. Let's look at our own country. Can you still hear me? Please signify if you can hear me. Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
So, and yes, so after studying what works in other country, it could be adapted to the local context of a new country. And of course, we also look at comparing institutional resources and policy instruments within the country, then followed by what lessons could be adapted, what lessons could be transferred. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we adapt the process, and then we use this to develop the governance, aquaculture governance of this new country. Here, I want to quickly introduce us to some of the FAO tools and resources that are used for aquaculture, sustainable aquaculture governance development. Of course, FAO has several tools that support decision making. NASO provides the national aquaculture sector overviews, and NALO helps countries understand the legal and administrative frameworks. FishStats provides comparable fisheries and aquaculture statistics. I guess some of the students who are very much interested in aquaculture might have used the FishStats before, so you might be quite familiar with FishStats. And WAPI is also a very important aquaculture statistics tool, which helps assess aquaculture performance. And ALERT, it supports legal gap analysis and regulatory reform. UTIDA is used to help assess investment viability, aquaculture investment viability and profitability, which is quite used in supporting countries in developing investment opportunities and public-private partnership opportunities as well. So the important point here is that these tools, they support specific decision. Some are used for diagnosis, some are used for legal reform, some are used for investment preparation and sector review or monitoring. So of course, so we're going to share this PowerPoint with you later, and you can take your time to go through this website to get familiarized with what they entail. And of course, some are adapted to different countries. You can look at what it is there for your respective countries as well. This slide shows how governance moves from theory to practice. A country may begin by clarifying why aquaculture is a public priority. Public priority in terms of development objectives. Is it for food and nutrition security? Is it for job creation? Is it for youth engagement? Is it for different development opportunities, development priorities? And then this could now be adapted to ensure that aquaculture contributes to this development objective. Then, after having this public priority, then it starts to diagnose the sector using evidence, using the tools that I mentioned earlier, and then it reviews whether the current policy and law are well aligned, and if not, they could do a policy review, policy analysis, policy diagnosis, and identify the key entry points or the gaps to be filled. And of course, this also clarifies which institutions decide, deliver, finance, and make the reporting. So this is quite important to have key institutional roles and who does what, so that there will not be overlapping of mandates between institutions. So, and then this process prepares investment proposals that will be feasible to actually promote investment in the sector. And finally, there's need to also monitor the results and adapt where needed. So this is a practical value of governance to actually turn aquaculture growth into investable development. I'm drawing to a close with this slide, but with this slide, I just want to quickly show what often actually goes wrong. Sometimes a policy may be drafted without thorough implementation plan. Implementation plan might not be well developed, maybe because at the initial stage, the participatory approach was not, all stakeholders were not fully engaged, and then there might be little gaps. So this could impact on the governance. Sometimes institutions may have overlapping or unclear mandates. So it's important to have a clear mandate for each institution. And then sometimes another country's model are copied without adapting them appropriately to local or national context. So it's sometimes even also in terms of legal reform, they might just stop at drafting without having proper procedures, budget, or staff to implement or to follow through. And sometimes investments are promoted before even projects are properly prepared. So the response to all these gaps is coherence to ensure that policy, strategy, institutions investments, and monitoring are well connected from the beginning. It's quite important to plan the process properly from the beginning to ensure that the expected results are achieved. Let me close with these 4 takeaways. That effective governance requires coherent policies, clear mandates, and institutions with capacity and resources. And secondly, evidence and data are essential for better decisions. Monitoring and adaptive management are necessary to balance growth, environmental sustainability, and social inclusion. And lastly, your research of students can actually further amplify what often work and what needs to be improved. As students and future researchers, I would like to encourage you to think not only about how aquaculture can grow, but how it can grow responsibly, inclusively, and sustainably. With this, I will leave it for questions and discussions. And may I propose to the moderator, maybe after going through the second lecture, we can do the question and answer together. I return it back to you. Thank you.
All right. So Mr. Femi has just finished with the first session. So do you have any questions to ask for Mr. Femi? He will be presenting another topic after this. Before we proceed, do you have any questions related to the presentation just now? Anyone? You may type in the chat box. Maybe before maybe they are finding words to write a question. Maybe I can ask, is there any established country that already successfully implemented this integrated agri and agriculture system? I mean, the governance. Do you have any example of the established one?
Of course, there are many countries that FAO are supported in the aquaculture governance. Quite a number of them in Africa, even also in Asia. It's a process, of course, as things continue to grow, development objectives are also expanding. Sometimes they need to revise to promote further. So virtually all countries have a form of aquaculture governance, and some are also learning from other countries through SASAT and triangular cooperation. So these are just so numerous aquaculture governance mechanisms across different countries. In fact, it's good that you asked the question. So maybe I'm going to pose a challenge to the students to also go online, check the aquaculture governance of their countries, and get themselves familiarized with what it is about their country. They can check the NALO for their countries on the FAO website. These are quite good information. Of course, also the aquaculture development strategies of different countries. They're also on the FAO website. So you can also read the overview to get familiarized with the aquaculture development strategy of your country.
There is a question on the Q&A. Miss Noor.
Oh wait. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
And then I'm
approach...
sorry to cut you. And if someone of the attendees or panelists would like to speak, I can also allow you to speak if you prefer.
You can raise your hands, right? So, okay, let me read the question from the Q&A chat box for anonymous attendee. The approaches presented sounds like a market system development MSD approach. So what I would like to know is if FAO also using MSD approach throughout its investment for sustainability purposes and more private sector engagement. Yeah.
Of course, when we talk about this, the approach that we use, can you still hear me, please? I think I'm seeing internet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. So when we talk about the approach, there is no one size fits all. It depends on the context of each country. It depends on the objectives of the country, the policies, the direction, the visions. It depends on different factors. The most important thing is to adapt to what the country needs, the development objectives of the country, the vision, and what the country wants to achieve. So whichever approach that is used, it's just all about making sure that the intended objectives are achieved. So different approaches could be used, different examples from different countries could be used through lessons learned. And that is why it's important to have this joint vision in the beginning to ensure that the participatory approach to the development by involving every stakeholder from the government institutions to producers to cooperatives so that everybody comes together to develop this process together. So this is how it works. So there's no definite, let's say, methodology, but it has to be adapted to local context. Over to you.
Yep. All right. Any other question? If no, maybe you can also still write your question in the chat box. However, maybe we can proceed to the next presentation. Mr. Femi, is that okay?
Okay. Very much. Thank you very much. Yes. So, having discussed aquaculture governance, we now move from the enabling environment to one practical production approach that good governance can actually support, the integrated agriculture-aquaculture systems. In the previous lecture, we saw that policies, institutions, regulations, investment, and accountability determine if aquaculture development is sustainable and inclusive. So this particular lecture will show what that development can look like at farm level. Integrated agriculture actually connects food production with crops, livestock, and other farming activities. And of course, it fully supports the FAO betters that I mentioned earlier in terms of better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life that leaves no one behind. So in this lecture, we will examine, I will start calling integrated agriculture IAA to make it easier so you can easily follow me. I don't have to say the full words. So this lecture will examine IAA from both a technical and a development perspective. And by the end of this lecture, I expect that all of us will be able to explain what IAA actually means and why it matters for agri-food systems. We'll look more closely at rice fish systems at some point as an example, as an important example of IAA system. And we should also be able to assess the benefits, constraints, and steps required to move from small trials to wider adoption. And finally, I encourage you to identify opportunities. I mean, why I gave this lecture, I encourage you to identify opportunities for research, innovation, and possibly youth-led enterprise that could come out of IAA systems. And as students, I believe that your contribution is not simply to describe these systems, but to also generate evidence and solutions that can make them more practical and scalable now and of course also in the future. I would like to start the slide the starting point is that the pressure facing global agri-food systems. One major pressure is the food and nutrition challenges, which remains quite significant. If you look at the map by the right side, we can see that nearly 1 out of 10 of the total global population are undernourished. And in 2024, children under the age of 5, 22.23% of them are reported to be stunted. So this is a very big challenge. And at the same time, the land, water, and other productive resources are increasingly constrained. Climate variability is also making farming and aquatic food production more uncertain. This means that simply expanding conventional production may not be sufficient or sustainable. The challenge before us is therefore clear. How can we produce more food and more diverse food from the same resource base while also protecting the environment and strengthening farmers' resilience? So IAA provides one practical response to this question by linking different farming activities rather than managing them separately. IAA deliberately connects crops, aquatic animals, and in some cases, livestock. The main principle is that land, water, nutrients, labor, and farm byproducts can support more than one productive activity. In a land and water footprint that was initially designated for one crop production, that is now used for more than one crop production, most often two crop production and sometimes three. For example, water from a fish pond may support vegetable production. Crop residue may contribute to pond productivity. Nutrients from aquatic production may be reused within the farming system. So this reflects this typical circular principles of recycling, reusing, repurposing, regenerating resources. However, integration should not be understood as simply placing different activities together. The different components must actually interact in a way that produces practical benefits and must be adapted to local agroecology, resources, and cultural practices. The cultural practices has to be respected, and this should align with the basic principles of what the farmers actually need and what the development objectives is expected to be achieved. IA responds to the several pressures that I mentioned earlier at the same time. It can produce more food from the same agricultural area. It can also be used to diversify farmers' livelihood by generating more than one product and income sources. So farmers who initially are just, for example, doing rice production, they can now do rice and fish and vegetable, thereby earning more income. Past activities that we've done indicated that farmers can actually increase their income or profitability by close to 25%, even up to 450%, depending on the scale of the IAA and the levels of risk management. So this is quite a valuable opportunity for farmers to diversify their income sources. Of course, in the face of climate change, where there is so many market shocks, of course, even looking at the post-COVID situation, this kind of a system builds resilience into the farming system quite a lot. And of course, it can also be used to improve household diets by combining crops and fish within the system. For example, it could be used as a fridge, for instance, in situations whereby in rural communities where there's, let's say, it's difficult for them to have electricity. This field, the IA feed, could be used to store fish, and farmers could go there at intervals to pick fish to consume in the household, or sometimes to sell and use this to contribute to household food budgets. So integration definitely can also improve the efficiency with which water, land, nutrients, and biodiversity are used. So the central message here is that IA is not simply about adding fish to aquaculture to agriculture. It is about redesigning the farm so that its different components work together more efficiently, and so that they could deliver broader food systems benefits. Here, I want to just briefly talk about different models of IA systems. They come in different models. Could be the typical rice fish that I've mentioned earlier, could be rice fish vegetable system. Sometimes duck is introduced to the system. Sometimes the fish ponds simply connected to vegetable production or horticulture, as we mentioned. And if you look at this map, I'm not sure if you can see the different dots of different countries. These are the recent places where we've done some IA work globally. Of course, this is not exhaustive. There are more countries, but these are just indicative. So the work is growing, and of course, I'm open to discussing with different students their interests in different countries if they want to learn more on what we've done in these separate different countries. Here, I just want to quickly introduce us to focus on one example of IA system, the rice fish systems, which is the most common. So this I don't want to. I just want us to read the definition. So that it's more like rice fish is a production system in which rice fields are deliberately managed to support rice together with aquatic animals. These animals may occur naturally in the field or may be intentionally stocked. This may include finfish, shrimp, crabs, and other aquatic animals. Rice and aquatic animals may be produced concurrently, meaning at the same time or in rotation. After rice harvest, then fish is tortured and subsequently doing this in rotation. And then this depends on the farming calendar, water availability, and local conditions, and most importantly, the farmer's preference themselves. Here, I just want to show us different types of field design, how rice fields are modified or adapted for fish to include fish production. And this is one of the most important technical requirements in rice field systems, because rice can tolerate relatively shallow water, but fish require sufficient water depth. So protection and controlled movement. So the feed therefore often needs to be modified. Refuge and trenches provides deeper area where fish can survive when water level falls. And then we have to have raised straightened bonds. These are the trenches. I don't know if you can see my cursor. These are the trenches. And then the bonds are at the extreme end of the field. This has different benefits. It could also help to control fish escape from the field because they are raised, and also it helps to control flash floods in case of water overflow. Because the bonds are raised, they have to break the flow of water. So this is about building resilience and risk management into the system itself. Of course, we also have the inlets and outlet water parts where water can go into the system and where water can be released out of the system to balance, because during the production system, the rice requires different water level during the production system, from transplanting to where it starts to grow. And of course, the fish also needs water. So there's always a deeper part of the field where we serve as refuge, where fish could stay, maybe during the very hot sunny day. So this modification is quite important. And of course, we also encourage to provide screens by the water inlet outlets to prevent predators from entering into the field and to also prevent the loss of stocked fish. So this design, of course, is often manageable. And when they are done at the initial stage, they could serve the farmers for 10 to 15 years. So the recurring cost is not there. So the moment farmers are able to manage adapt their rice field in the beginning, this could serve them for subsequent years. Rice field systems create value through the biological and ecological interactions. Because I know some of us may have experienced this before, so I just want to go through it a little bit. In the integrated rice field systems, fish feeds on insects, larvae, weeds, and naturally occurring organisms in the rice field, thereby reducing the need for pesticide. And this is a form of biological control in the system. Their fish movement also can help circulate nutrients and may also contribute to soil disturbance and aeration, thereby reducing the need for chemical fertilizer. Fish waste, of course, also returns nutrients into the system. So, of course, also reducing the need for chemical fertilizer. So, rice plants provide shade and absorb nutrients from the water. So, the symbiotic reaction between rice and fish is quite important because they serve each other. And then with this, they help to reduce the cost of input needed. And then, of course, chemical fertilizer could be eliminated or reduced. Pesticide could be reduced. So this comes with a lot of, in terms of production economic continuum, it's profitable. In terms of environmental consideration, it's also of great advantage. And in terms of ecological interaction, it promotes a lot of ecosystem services within the system. So the farmer is therefore not assessing just rice yield alone. The relevant measure is the combined value of rice and fish that it gets from a field that is initially designated for rice production alone. Now they have fish and rice, and they can also gather other aquatic animals from this rice field. Sometimes, as reported by farmers, they could get crabs, they could get other aquatic foods from this feed, because it tends to improve aquatic biodiversity in rice feed areas. And when we talk about the combined benefits, it's also about the inputs that are saved and also food consumption that are generated. So in terms of this system, the perspective is essential when evaluating an integrated rice feed system that becomes successful. I will still come later to the aspect of research that might be of interest to us all as students. So when we talk about developing rice feed systems and integrated systems, I actually want to introduce us to a promotional trial process that we've used before to promote this system. Definitely, everybody here will agree with me that a promising technology cannot just move automatically from research to widespread adoption. The process actually would normally begin with understanding the local situation and engaging farmers, public institutions, researchers, extension workers, and market actors on how best to proceed, what gaps are there, and what development objectives are to be achieved. Following this, the system is then tested through participatory or promotion trials. These trials should help determine whether the technology is technically feasible, economically viable, and socially acceptable. And during implementation, regular follow-ups is important. Farmers should be encouraged to document their adaptations, their lessons, and innovations. And successful farmers even may later become mentors or farmer trainers. And then the scaling can then build on evidence, can build on communication, can build on stakeholder ownership as well. In most of our approach, farmers are not simply seen as recipients of technology, they're partners in testing, in adapting, and improving this process. So we are co-developers, and then everything is often being developed and directed by the farmers. So as I mentioned earlier, it's important that there's need to build the political and stakeholder momentum, which is, I talk about awareness raising, where there's situation analysis to understand what the current production system in the country, where the gaps are, and where integrated system could help improve the process. And this, of course, would involve different stakeholder dialogue and also having an action plan to follow. And then this is followed by the promotion trials to test these interventions and to gather the lessons, to gather the knowledge where they are required. And this will also involve mapping existing resources and how to actually harness the resources that are available to ensure that this system is properly promoted and could deliver on all the possible objectives, all the possible outcomes it could deliver on. And then through this process, this is where trainers and mentors develop their human skills and the needed skills. Here, we also always want to evolve extension services, universities, and other collaborators to be engaged in the process of mentoring and training of farmers, and of course, establish training components within the institution. Maybe also have a demonstration plots within the university to train farmers and to also train students alike. And then the last component is about translating this vision into practical change, and by extending collaboration and having process of scaling up the entire system. And of course, also important to communicate what has been achieved to farmers so that farmers would understand the benefits, farmers will fully understand the ecological components and the environmental benefit that it comes with it. For example, we've done some work in certain countries where in remote areas, some rice farmers, they mentioned that it is an eye-opener to them that they could actually combine aquaculture with rice production. So they're missing on this kind of great opportunity because through different trials, we realized that when fish is combined with rice production, the expected rice yield for farmers doesn't reduce. In fact, in many instances, it actually increases by sometimes by 2%, sometimes up to 5%. So farmers, most time they have nothing to lose, but a lot to gain. It gives them triple yield benefits of increased yield, increased profitability, and of course, increased level of nutrition. So with this process is always adapted to different countries, to different contexts, and to different needs of different communities as well. So before I close, I just want to say that IAA presents many opportunities for students in terms of research. Of course, we will need stronger evidence on aquatic biodiversity and conservation in rice feeds, and of course, also look at household nutrition, how this is managed, how households manage the contribution of integrated agriculture to their nutrition and livelihood outcomes. There are also important data gaps in socioeconomic studies that is beyond research on yields and profitability. Studies should also compare labor requirements, water use, and environmental impacts and ecosystem services provided by the integrated systems in comparison to the monocropping system. And then there's needs for continuous and further technical innovations, which are needed in areas such as field design. How can we, of course, design the field to ensure that the productivity is further improved in terms of stocking densities? And we also do different types of polyculture that could be done within the integrated life systems. Of course, there's a lot on catfish, tilapia, crabs, meeting crabs, different systems, but of course, can also want to look at stocking densities in terms of polyculture systems as well. Well, this is what I talk about species combinations. And of course, to look at the local available feeds. Let's look at the non-fair systems. We talk about black soldier fly larva. It's generating interest. How can we use alternative feed ingredients in integrated systems? And to what extent does this contribute to fish growth and productivity compared to commercial feed production? So there's a lot of gaps that research could help us to fill. Research could also help to examine the enabling environments, which policies, incentives, extension approaches, and institutional arrangements can support adoption in new areas. And I'll close by saying that a strong research proposal should be able to connect specific research question to real problems faced by farmers or institutions or consumers or other value chains. Of course, I also want to mention that, of course, research will also include looking at the consumer willingness to pay for integrated agriculture products. This is also a form of socio-economic research. So there are just a lot of gaps where our research interest could be applied in the system. I'll conclude with these 4 main points: that IAA can produce more and more diverse food from the same resource base while supporting income diversification. And it is more than a production technique. It can contribute to nutrition, resilience, and resource efficiency. And integration must be adapted to local conditions. A model that succeeds in one location should not be transferred elsewhere without testing and adjustments in order to even improve the system in new location itself. And scaling requires more than just technical success. It requires evidence and to ensure that all stakeholders are involved and extension services give proper and adequate advice to the farmers, and that the stakeholder ownership is promoted and governance systems discussed in the previous lecture is taken into consideration when creating this new system for stakeholder ownership. And this is where governance and technology actually meets, that good governance can create the condition for effective innovation to move from trials to sustainable development. So on that note, maybe I just close with a few additional words that when reviewing integrated agriculture systems, we should try to look beyond the production figures. The production figures are always quite attractive. It's always profitable. It's in terms of the production economic figures. We need to also even examine who participates, who benefits, what resources are used, what risks are created, and whether this system can realistically be maintained by the farmers. So good research should help decision makers and farmers understand not only if an intervention works, but where it works and at what cost. So these are good research questions that we can think about. And these are the type of questions that can turn academic research into practical contribution for agri-food system transformation. I'm happy to discuss this topic further with you anytime. Please feel free to write me an email in case you'd like to discuss further anytime. So thank you very much for your attention. Through both lectures, they're quite long. Thank you for your attention, and I welcome your questions, observations, and comments. Thank you, and over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Femi, for the informative sharing on this. I think this IAA is a very good approach for food safety and also food security in the long term. All right. So if you have any questions, just type in the box, or you can raise your hands that we allow you to ask yourself. The questions, Mr. Femi. However, from the chat box, I read one question from Salvador Miranda. Do you fund any research proposal from faculty researchers in the field of fisheries? Free instructional materials for students taking fisheries degree. Would you like to answer that, Mr. Femi?
Please, could you repeat the question?
Oh,
Please, could
okay.
you
Sorry,
repeat the
there's a
question,
lightning.
please?
There's lightning here. It's going to rain soon. All right. Do you fund any research proposal from faculty researchers in the field of fisheries? And do you offer free instructional materials for students taking a fisheries degree?
Okay, thank you for the question. There are so many free instructional materials that we have on the FAO website. I will encourage you to check some of our work on farmer feed schools for rice fish development. And we have some workshop report as well that are quite interesting that collates different experience from different countries. There was one on agroecological approach to IA systems. There are other ones on instructional manual for rice fish developments, and there's some on strategy developments. I'll kindly encourage you that you can have a look on our websites, and you can find different instructional materials and guidance notes on integrated rice fish systems.
Sorry,
Alright.
just to complement with this, I put on the chat a list of FAO courses that are certified by us on the FAO e-learning academy. And there are many on aquaculture. So if you can go join these courses, take the courses, pass exams, you will get a certificate. Before moving, can we give the floor to the participant that would like to speak? So, start.
Yeah. I think one is raising their hands here.
Yes, Anyango Benta, if you allow me to speak.
Who is this?
So I'm following from China, Shanghai Ocean University.
Benta?
Yes.
I think Ayango Benta is raised his hand.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, yes. Please.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Anyango Benta, following from Shanghai Ocean University in China. And I have a very quick question to Dr. Femi regarding the promotion of rice fish farming in different countries as has been shown in the map. So I'm just curious, like, what are some of the responses to the adoption of rice fish farming technologies in various regions that you've been trying to promote this type of farming systems? And what are the factors that limit its adoption in these regions, if there are any? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Benta. This is a very important question, actually, especially the second part of the question. What makes adoption and scaling difficult? Um, I think this is quite linked to the first part of the lecture, aquaculture governance. Um, of course, there has been so many trials across different countries, promotional trials, and over time, we've seen that most of these development are limited to promotional trials or limited to research institutes, and large-scale adoption has been elusive in certain countries. Of course, we look at the positive example of China, and not just China alone, and most Asian countries. Rice fish has taken off quite a lot because the aquaculture governance supports it clearly, and there is institutional support that promotes integrated rice fish systems. But in other countries, for example, in the global south, we are seeing more interest from governments. We've seen more interest in developing the system by the government and more institutional support as well. So the face is growing little by little, and of course we are not yet there, but we are moving towards having a large-scale production as well in other countries as well. So when we talk about the limitations, it's often that's governance support, where integrated system is also incorporated into policies, into strategies, into investment plans, which are quite foundational or fundamental in promoting a system like this. So, for example, we are supporting some work in Eastern African countries, and the interest in terms of governance, in terms of policies, has been quite interesting, has been quite encouraging. In fact, there's a lot of open channels to incorporate integrated system into the policies and strategies. So I'm positive that in the next couple of years, we're gonna see a very positive trend, a very positive trajectory in integrated rice fish systems promotion in the global south as well. So it's a process that is moving. In the first part of the question, I think you asked about the limitations. One other thing is, of course, the knowledge gap. In certain contexts, the knowledge gap is a bit wide. I mean, knowledge gap in terms of farmers knowing how to modify their systems, how to properly incorporate the cultural practices of integrated system. There seems to be a knowledge gap for some farmers. Like I mentioned during my lecture, that some farmers see it as an eye-opener that they could actually incorporate fish farming into rice production. They don't know. So there's a need to also increase the communication, increase the level of awareness, and to work together with extension services to promote this system within different countries. And for example, this is even an example of it is why we are here. We're talking about integrated system. It's also a form of promotion. And of course, we continue to work on promotion. We continue to work on creating awareness. And of course, working on incorporating the system into aquaculture governance to ensure that it is being promoted in a sustainable manner. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So any other question from the participants? You want to, okay, I saw here. Okay, all right. Maybe I can read out the question from the chat box. From Kenneth Chibukan. Okay, thank you for your lecture. Would you please highlight the challenges of integrated system? For example, in fish cum rice farming, it favors rice production more than the fish because fish growth is usually impaired in the integrated system, mostly by altering the water parameters. Yeah, that's a question.
Okay. Thank you so much for this question. Of course, this question relates to the cultural practices that I mentioned earlier. When it comes to integrated systems, of course, when it comes to practical guidance on how to go about it, there are different systems across different countries. Of course, it has to be tailored to local context. So, when it comes to fish growth, in the integrated system, water is quite important. We cannot do without water. Fish needs water to survive. And of course, rice also needs water to survive. That's why I talk about the field modification and to ensure that water is available in the trenches. Even when water level goes down, fish could be guided into the trenches where there's available water. And of course, in the dry season, for instance, of course, due to variability in climate change, maybe there's a dry spell and there's lack of water, there should be alternative water sources. Maybe tube wells could be made or farms are situated close to lakes or alternative water or irrigation systems. And for instance, in certain instances where the soil is could not hold water, maybe there's a leaching of water into the soil. We have this adaptation where plastic could be placed within the trenches to hold water. So we have some manuals. You can maybe check our website. We have some manuals and that has been developed in the course of time to look at these different mitigation methods in terms of water management. And of course, we have some manuals coming up very soon, of course, for rice fish development in Eastern Africa. In the next 2 or 3 months, we should be able to publish this manual. I will encourage you to look out for this. This manual actually answers your question clearly in terms of different water levels in the rice field during the cultural practices and the rice fish development process. As I mentioned during my lecture, of course, when we transplant and the different growth stages of the rice, the water levels would always have to change. But the most important part is for having enough water for the fish. And then the fish could always be guided towards the trenches where there's enough water. So to further answer your question, in terms of fish growth, the importance of feeding and having a proper feeding regime for the fish as well. Of course, we have the primary production inside the water that fish could feed on naturally occurring foods in the rice feed. And of course, there could also be supplemental feeding to ensure that the fish have enough growth. And then the farmers could also determine the length of the production cycle. If they want to harvest the fish during the time of rice harvest, and if they want to add value to the fish, maybe whether by fish smoking or other forms of processing, or even after rice harvest, they want to continue to grow the fish. So there are different ways to ensure that fish growth is sustained and that the table size that the farmer needs are achieved. So it's all about farmer preference. So I will encourage you to look forward to look into our upcoming manual in the next 2-3 months. You're going to have more information about your specific questions and mitigation measures to different challenges and different cultural practices in integrated rice fish development. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Femi. So, do we have any other question from the floor?
Yes.
All right, please.
One more question. We find that aquaculture is very lucrative in terms of value of aquatic species comparable to the rice as a product. So, and this creates a very big danger to all rice farmers shifting from rice production to aquaculture production, which would not be a very good situation for some countries where rice is a very crucial part of food security and economic development. So to avoid such incidents, what are the FAO doing to ensure that rice farmers do not shift fully to aquaculture production? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Benta, for your question. This actually leads to the first part of the lecture again, aquaculture governance, the vision, the coherence in vision, stakeholder participatory approach, developing this aquaculture governance, including strategies and plans. As I mentioned, as FAO, we advise the government. Of course, the government determines what they want. They are the owners, they are the custodian of their mandates, of their plan, of their strategy. on what they want to achieve. So everything depends on the governments, what they want to achieve. Ours is just for the governments to request our support, and we advise the government on what's the best approach to achieve their developed objective that in which they requested us to advise them about. So if the government wants to balance between rice production, fish production, and the direction they want to go, we advise appropriately based on what the governments according the member countries, the member countries wants to achieve. So in this case, the balance is always there. It depends on the countries that determines the major outcome. So, of course, I acknowledge the fact that in integrated rice fish systems, farmers are more interested in fish species or crabs that's developed that give them a lot of economic value. So, of course, policies, strategies, and governance determines this direction in different countries, and the government are the custodian of these guidance and strategies. So the countries will determine this by themselves. I hope I answered the question, Ms. Benta.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay. So, is there any question from the floor?
I just wanted to mention that I post on the chat box the state of work fisheries and aquaculture by the director of the fisheries division, Manuel Baranque. If you click there and you can have a look on this podcast, you will gain a bit of knowledge on what is FAO doing, just for your information. Before finalizing, Femi, can you please share a bit of your career path to the students and what is needed if they would like to work on the aquaculture sector for the research in terms of research? Just your personal experience. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much, Marilyn. And of course, I cannot talk about my story without talking about yours as well. Because we joined the FAO together under a very interesting program with the Indigenous Peoples team in 2017, I believe. Yes. And it's at the time I was with the Nutrition and Food System Division. So my background spans across different disciplines. I started with food science and technology, and then I did a master's in food technology and another master's in organic food systems and organic agriculture and food systems with specialization in experimental aquaculture. And then I completed that on a PhD in aquaculture at the Shanghai University in China. So this spanned across different years, about 7 years altogether. And I've been privileged to be working in the fisheries and aquaculture division since 2018. And then when we talk about research objectives, for me, I'm very much interested in the IA system. Of course, and I've always seen a gap in the research component of it, quite a lot. There's been a lot of gap in the ecosystem services provided by the integrated rice fish systems in most African countries, in Latin America and the Caribbean as well. So there is a lot of gap in this. And it's something that I think could be of interest to students. And of course, we talk about the drivers, the pressures, the states changes, the impact and pressures involved in integrated rice fish systems. There's also a gap in this kind of research as well. And thinking about integrated systems, how much it contributes to food security and nutrition, how much it contributes to environmental sustainability, how much it contributes to ecological interaction. I mean, we have a long way to go in consolidating the knowledge, the different knowledge that we have. There seems to be a lot of gray literature in these areas, but when it comes to academic and research outputs, the gaps are there. and we are all here to fill this gap, of course, if it is of interest to us. And this is something we can always work together on. And then going back to my personal experience, and then I will also want to encourage every student here that we should always try to focus on where the challenges are. And if we do research that address these challenges, we could create our own individual visibility in the research arena. And with this, we could always create opportunities for ourselves. So I will leave it there. Thank you.
All right. I think that's a very good, insightful presentations. I do agree that this integrated agriculture aquaculture is a very good approach nowadays. But still, if in Malaysia also, I think that we are facing some challenges because I think in terms of governance, even though I don't think that the farmers, because in Malaysia, the farmers is individual people, so that they are not belong to the government. I mean, it's not top down. So that when they want to, if they want to go for this integrated, to rice fish approach, like you mentioned in the slide, there might be a low input at the beginning, right? So that would be concern for our farmers because they are actually depending on this rice field. But I think it's a good start. We need to start somehow to have this integrated approach. I think that if there's no other questions, that we come to the end of this session this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to our speaker, Mr. Oluwafemi Ajayi, for the insightful, valuable insights for this afternoon. And as we mentioned just now, today's discussion has highlighted the importance of integrated aquaculture approach in creating more productive, resilient, and also sustainable food systems. As always, today's recording will be available through the Google Drive link shared in the Zoom chat, and we warmly welcome you to invite you to join us for the final lecture of this FAO series on Monday, 20th July 2026. That will be featuring Dr. Luciana Delgado, who will discuss innovative FAO tools for reducing food loss and waste. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the final session. Before that, maybe we will have a photographer session